One of the things we've always done here at the nursery is send big plants. And I'm going to talk to you today about why we do that and the one thing you don't want to do with the big plants that we send. There's a lot of benefits to planting a big plant like what we send. Now what we send, we try and always send something that has at least 3 fans. So if you can see on this one, this is a fan, right? So that's the smallest part you can divide a daylily down. So we try and always leave at least 3 together. So this one's got 5. And this is about what we would sell. Most of them, I guarantee it's got 3, but most of them will have a few more than that perhaps. And what we suggest is you plant it just like it is. And if you divide your daylilies that you have in your garden, like you have a big clump and you divide it down, we suggest you divide it to about this same size as well. And there's a few reasons why. Basically, a plant like this is just going to be healthier than a small plant. It's going to be more vigorous, more able to take, like if you get a dry period or a late freeze or just any kind of something going on in your garden. We had an email from a customer and they were weeding their garden and they pulled up their daylily plants. And I'm pretty sure it was probably because she planted something really small, that just came up with the weeds. Well, if you planted something like this, you're going to have a hard time. This is going to stay in the ground. You're not going to pull it up with your weeds. So that's one of the benefits of planting a big plant like this. Another benefit of planting a big plant like this is that you're going to get more blooms sooner. So if you plant this in the spring, early enough in the spring, you should get blooms out of a plant this size that same summer. I will just mention, the closer you get to bloom season, if you start moving your plants, you're going to potentially interrupt your bloom season that summer. But if you plant it early enough in the spring, you get blooms that summer. And if you plant in the fall, a plant this size, it's going to be good to go next year for sure. You're going to get good blooms on it. So that's the benefit of a plant this size. A smaller plant, if you plant something like this, you're probably not going to get blooms the first year. Now obviously gardening is always an exercise in patience, but one of the ways you can speed things up in your garden is planting a big plant like this, because it's going to more blooms faster and get a more established look in your garden. A plant this size is going to have more foliage, bigger foliage. If you plant it in the fall, you're going to have a full mature looking clump the next summer, and in the spring as well if you plant it early enough. One of the questions we get quite often is from folks who get a big plant that we send them and they want to know, can they divide this? And the answer is yes, you could divide this certainly, but we strongly recommend that you don't for all the reasons that I just mentioned. Now if you were to divide this down, you could get a small plant like this. This is as small as you can divide a daylily down. But if you do that, you're going to have just the opposite of all the things that I mentioned, the benefits of a big plant. You're more likely for this to die over winter or through a drought or get accidentally pulled up with the weeds or just whatever reason. And it's most likely not going to bloom the first year, and it may be 2 or 3 years before it actually gives you good bloom and looks good in your garden. It's not going to look established the first year. So that's the advantages of a big plant, versus the small plant. We're going to do a little test. I've got a couple of these larger sized plants here and a couple of the smaller ones. And I want to plant these, and it's first part of September here. So we're going to plant them now and then come back in the spring and see how they look. So planting daylilies is pretty simple. I'm just going to pull back the dirt here and make a little hole, obviously big enough to fit the plant in. There's a big one, so we're going to need a little bit bigger hole. There we go. Alright, that's big enough to fit the roots in, right? And like I mentioned, I'm going to put it about ground level right there or so. Alright, so I'm just going to push the dirt around it, like that. Okay. And just mash it down a little bit. So like I said, I've got a couple of these bigger ones, so I'm going to plant these in the back here, and then I'll plant these smaller ones up front, and then be interested to see how it turns out. So I've got these planted. I'm going to come back here after we finish shooting the video and mulch these. Daylilies aren't picky about what kind of mulch. I'm just going to use some wood chips. And then I'm going to come back and water them in well. Water is really important for daylilies for best performance. We recommend at least 1 inch a week, which is 2 or 3 good soakings. That's the best thing you could do for your daylilies for best performance. And then I'm looking forward to seeing how these turn out in the spring, so you'll have to check back and see that video when we do that. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, we have a lot of videos on all things daylilies on our YouTube channel, and so you be sure and check those out. Daylilies are a really easy plant to grow. We love them. That's how we got into the business. A hobby gone out of control. So if you have any questions about daylilies, put them in the comments below, or our contact information is available. Reach out to us. We love to talk daylilies.